Okay, I think we're going to start. Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming to the second stage. I'm going to give a talk which sounds philosophical, but is totally not. So this talk is going to be about collaboration tech, which is how to use the ways to use technology to align incentives. And in particular, I'm going to reinterpret zero knowledge, secure multi-party computation, homomorphic encryption, and so on, as particular cases of collaboration tech and show you how this should impact your thinking and your priorities about them. A bit more about me later, but first the outline. So I'm first going to argue that collaboration is the key to civilization, and everything we get around us, all these nice things, is because we have technologies that, or we as humanity develop technologies that allow people and businesses and entities to collaborate better. Second, I'm going to define CollabTech, which is all of these technologies that help us collaborate better. And I'm going to argue this is the greatest value generator you can possibly imagine. And third, I'm going to reinterpret zero knowledge and private computation as collaboration tech and not as people often think of them as privacy tech. Right? They're much more than privacy. And then I'm going to say, when you ask the question, when you wake up in the morning, what should I work on? The answer should be guided by the technology or the tool or the product that best enables collaboration. And not just to say, let's just do what everyone else is doing, but with more privacy. Because I'll argue that no one cares, or rather, it's more complicated than that. We'll get there. But the main takeaway I want you to get here is don't think of zero knowledge proofs as privacy technology, but rather as collaboration technology. A little bit about me, Elad Verbin, not a cryptographer, kind of important. I'm a general algorithms person and moved slowly from algorithms to machine learning to blockchain and now to investing. So I have a small Berlin-based VC called Berlin Innovation Ventures where we invest in very, very early stage project, pre-product, pre-R&D, pre-everything, in smart people doing algorithm-based innovation. Small projects that are likely to fail. If it has zero chances for the technology to fail development, it's for some of our partners maybe, but not for us. What we like to do is they invest in projects that might fail, but if they succeed, they build an algorithmic product that is really interesting. If you have an interesting startup that is like this or know of one, please send them to me or come talk to me later. My love affair with private computation, so as I said, not a cryptographer. So how the hell do I know about these things? Well, I happen to do a postdoc with the guy that invented some of this back in the 80s, Andy Yao, and then another postdoc in Aarhus in the same department as Ivan Damgard, and they were exactly deploying secure multi-party computation exactly for the first time in 2008 in the field, and everyone was super, super excited, and I caught the bug, and even when I left academia, I still couldn't shut up about private computation, and looked like this guy. I've seen the future. No one understood what I was talking about until there's events, amazing events like this, that all of a sudden the field is starting to develop and there are applications, and finally the future is coming. So I'll start describing collaboration. So I'm going to argue that collaboration created everything that we see around us. So Yuval Noah Harari, in his book Sapiens, asks, what's special about humans? So maybe it's about how we use tools really great. But octopods use tools amazingly well, and they haven't created this civilization, right? Maybe it's about our use of language. But actually, you can teach a gorilla to use sign language just fine, and gorillas didn't create civilization either. So what's special about humans? Harari argues that it's about being able to have shared myths together that allow us to collaborate. The point is that when we have money, and that when we believe that a bill gets you a banana, and we'll always be able to get you a banana, we start working for it. So we can take this bill and carry it throughout continents or then electronically, and start being able to build the civilization we see around us, and that's the special thing that allowed humanity to create civilization. It's about shared beliefs and collaboration. And of course, this is the modern pyramids, this thing that allows all of us to collaborate without knowing each other, without having identities that, that are named and so on. So the history of CollabTech is very, very long. It really starts with religion, arguably. So religion is a way to make us collaborate better or to remove friction by saying, well, I'm incentivized to kill any one of you if I see you in the street and take all your money and belongings. But I won't because it aligns my incentives better by saying you will be punished in a future world. So don't do that, right? So it changes my incentive structure, and therefore we get a culture where we don't go around killing each other, right? In a more technological setting, the Telegram, for example, allowed us to communicate between continents, between cities, very quickly. It was used for gambling first, right? But to create arbitrage. But it was then developed into the internet and so on. And we got better and better communication, and empires grow when communication improves. So you get, fast forward 100 years, you get Twitter, which allowed people, for example, in the Arab Spring, to collaborate much better, to demonstrate, to fight governments and so on, and you get something like Wikipedia, which is an amazing collaborative project. You create a platform where non-technological people can contribute to a shared knowledge base, and you get Wikipedia, right? The justice system can be thought of as a collaboration tech that aligns us better. Then, taxation and so on is a way to to change the incentive structure so that we all give money so that we get back infrastructure and so on. So collaboration techs kind of built everything around us. And I'm going to argue, before going to zero knowledge, I'm going to argue that it's really good and really profitable. The nice thing about collaboration is it creates positive sum value. It creates new business. It creates new opportunities, and it creates value when there was none before rather than extracting value, right? Wikipedia and really open project, it fundraises. It needs some funding. It needs some millions a year, but compare that to the value it gives, right? So it creates new value out of nothing. There's a bigger pie. It's easier to monetize it. So if you create a for-value company, it's still really good to concentrate on collaboration tech because there's a bigger pie. No one fights you as hard for the value that you created, right? Which is kind of the point of tokenization. You create tokens, they didn't exist before, they're part of a project that creates lots of value, you get to monetize them. And it's easier to gain allies when your project creates value, and there's a compounding effect in time and in space. It's not enough that I am able to transact in money with you. The point is that I'm able to transact with anyone in the world with the same currency, more or less. That value compounds over space, and it compounds over time because a 1% increase in collaboration every year compounds to, 2.7 per 100 years. So let's discuss what you should avoid, right? What's the opposite of collaboration, the thing you want to fix? And the question is the opposite of collaboration competition? And the answer is that it's no, because entities that compete with each other very often also collaborate with each other, right? There's industry groups of competitors that come together for a common goal. The actual opposite of collaboration is division, right? During the Cold War, the US and Russia would not talk to each other except over secured lines in very rare circumstances, and then they couldn't collaborate efficiently at all, right? So that's what you want to avoid. You want to avoid division by fixing various lines of division. And one of the biggest lines of division is the ones between businesses that can't share information with each other because that information can't be shared due to regulation or intellectual property or other kind of things. So that's what we're going to talk about solving. So collaboration tech, I discussed this in a much longer and more detailed talk that you can find online under the same name, collaboration tech. So I won't go into it in details now. But the short point is that you want to think of collaboration as two kinds of technologies. One that solve friction. For example, the kind of friction that we need when I have to get audited by professional auditors that take a lot of money. And also, collaboration should solve incentive misalignment, the kind of misalignment that says, when I pollute, then polar bears drown, but if I don't pollute, someone else will, so I don't have any incentive I have an incentive to free ride over this. So this is the two kinds of collaboration techs we want to focus on, and we'll mostly focus on the first, which is kind of easier to solve as well. That's not good. Okay. Future collaboration techs, those are the kinds of collaboration techs that I talk about in another talk on this topic. Private computation that we'll talk about today, which is zero knowledge proofs, multi-party computation, homomorphic encryption, and so on. But also decentralized ledgers should be thought of as collaboration tech because it allows us to keep track of value without having any central entity that takes friction and takes rent seeks. Token economics is a way to realign our incentives. Mechanism design is, again, a game theoretic technology that realigns incentives. Decision-making tools that allow us to get consensus better. And economic optimization, which would allow us to kind of improve faster and kind of to get better use of tax money or other money. So these are all covered in another talk. Today I'll talk just about private computation. So private computation, we've all seen this all day long, so just shortly, I'm a data science consultancy. There's a pharma corp. They have patient data. I have algorithms. We want to operate my algorithms on their data, but my algorithms are secret and their patient data is definitely secret. We want to collaborate somehow. What's the answer? Secure multi-party computation to apply my algorithms, which are kept secret, they're encoded, and on their data. And together we get the answer. So this is secure multi-party computation. It's cryptographically provable computation, right? Not just privacy, not just private communication. And just, to make sure we all know what we're talking about, secure multi-party computation in particular is when a bunch of players want to compute a joint function. Each player may only learn their input and the shared output. And Yao in 82 and onwards proved that this can be done for any function f with only a polynomial blowup, even if some of the players collude an attack. The protocol won't necessarily end if there's a big attack, but none of us, but the secrecy will be secured, and that's the important part. Okay, and the way to think about that, if you're applying this in your business, is as using simulation, using the concept of simulation, or what I'd call disintermediation, which is kind of a decentralization, but in a wider context. So what you do is you design your business logic or whatever as if there was a judge Judy that is completely trusted and will definitely keep your secrecy. So you design your algorithms and protocols for a trusted intermediary, where I just send my algorithm, my input x1, and the pharma corp will just send their x2. Judge Judy will compute the answer and return to both of us the output. And Yao's and subsequent results, secure multi-party computation results, show how to simulate that without having a Judge Judy at all, just with a cryptographic protocol. Okay? So that's the most elegant, I think, private computation primitive. And as we said, it improves privacy, which these people care about a lot, but that's not the important part. I'm going to argue that the interesting part is actually that it opens new avenues for collaboration. More privacy means there's more information that can be shared and more value all around. So, for example, and even to belabor the point more, boosting privacy in existing systems is something you should care about less. Because if you think about taking the current banking system and making it more private, it's really nice, but there's a limit to what it can do. It's like, growing a tree in a pot. It will only get you as far as the current banking system. But if you create new collaborations about data that was not shareable before, you'll get new business opportunities. So you can compare that. I'm a child of the 90s. I love comparisons to the tech in the 90s. So you can compare the left one to online banking, which is really nice, but recreates banking, and the right one to something like Kickstarter or PayPal, that really creates new stuff that you couldn't do in a pre-internet era. So which data? So we're left with a big question. When we come to select our focus, when we wake up in the morning and come to select our focus for the day, what data is too private to share? What can we focus on collaborating on, right? So it's mostly in the business domain, because businesses keep everything secret, right? There's various compliance reasons and other reasons and risk aversity that make businesses a really good target for this technology. And that's I think one of the main takeaways here. So if you think of, for a private person, the thing that is most secret to them is maybe their DNA. I don't know many people that would post a complete sequencing of their DNA online. And that's kind of it. Also, anything that you'd post on-chain, because that's really, really online. That's available everywhere. So arguably, you really want to keep private the stuff that is on-chain and your DNA. That's basically it. So what's the opportunities here for stuff that was not done yet, because it uses private stuff, private data? Drug research is really great. And privacy coins and private smart contracts. Those are some really good use cases. However, for the business cases, I can think of many more use cases that are interesting. So for a business, everything is private. In particular, their cash flow, super private. Client data, they can't share for all the reasons, both compliance and secrecy. any trade secrets or IP, any compliance information that is secret due to compliance reasons, and basically everything. So if you look at a business, they need everything private, and so there's lots and lots of opportunities to apply private computation. And some use cases, and you can figure out many more, auctions are really great, and in fact, we're the first use case exactly for these reasons in Denmark. Supply chain information, collaborating on supply chain and making it transparent or open without being completely public, auditing and loans, which we'll talk about, and so on. So how are we doing on time? Pretty good. So just to finish with the B2C cases, for on-chain data, there's great projects, Zcash, Monero, and Corda, which are privacy coins, and Enigma and Kedit and many others, which are ways to take on-chain data or private smart contracts and make them private. And there's really good use cases around Ocean and OpenMind for opening data silos, right? So for example, for drug research, where many companies have DNA of clients like 23andMe, you'd maybe share your DNA with 23andMe and not with anyone else. But we can envision an algorithm between 23andMe and other drug companies, other DNA sequencers, where they would operate an algorithm together for for drug discovery and stuff like that. So in general, massive data collaborations. In the more B2B area, the first application was sugar beet auctions. So basically, you have all the participants, which are businesses, submit their bids, and you clear the auction without anyone learning how much anyone else is willing to offer. This was replicated a lot of times with spectrum auctions, which is where the military releases frequencies and the cellular operators want to auction, want to bid on them. And there's even a book about this. And another use case that I really like, and I've discussed in more detail elsewhere, so if you want a more detailed discussion of this, ask me. But basically, algorithmic taxation. So right now, taxation systems are super legacy systems. They're pen and paper ready because so they have to be filled by hand very often and computable and checkable by hand by you. And also, these kind of people are the people who have to decide on them. So this whole system is completely legacy, while in the for-profit sector, private companies are optimizing everything about you. So clearly there's a mismatch there, and the argument is that if you go to the future, you'll get an algorithmic redistribution of wealth that is a collaboration technology, basically. It uses all of these components. So algorithms for reinforcement learning, for optimizing the taxation and redistributing it the best, and mechanism design for making sure none of us cheats during this process, and economics and public policy for figuring out what it is that we're trying to optimize, but also cryptography for SMPC for actually computing this on people's private data, which is necessary for real good optimization of redistribution of wealth. Other use cases, so supply chain auditing and loans. So Resonance is a really great company from the UK that basically does supply chain. We joke that it's optimizing chicken delivery. So basically, the people who grow chickens really need to be able to access the information about how much is the demand side, and how is the what drugs, and the demand side needs to access information about what drugs the chicken get and so on. And there's huge wastage in this system, but they're not connected to each other. They don't talk to each other because everything is trade secrets. If you apply zero knowledge proofs to this process, you'd optimize it a lot. It's true for vegetables, it's true for anything around food, it's true for anything about supply chain, for materials. Centrifuge is doing kind of a similar thing, but for finances. Supply chain finance, and how does money move in the system, and how do we actually make money and finance move more efficiently without me as a business telling everyone what my cash flow needs are, and how many clients I have, and so on, and still allowing efficient financing. Right now, finance is, as someone who has a VC, I can tell you, finance is stuck in the past, right? I need to talk to everyone manually and figure out what their financial needs are and what the rates of, what the revenues are and so on, and they wouldn't post this online. But if we could put all of this information online, encrypted, and allow controlled computation on it, things would get much more efficient. And in summary, I would argue that, so the question is which projects should you work on, right? And I would argue that first of all, you need to think of zero-knowledge proofs and other private computation as not about privacy, but about collaboration. And then when you wake up in the morning, figure out which project would use private computation in a way that most boosts collaboration in terms of dollars. Measure it in any way you want. Measure it by what kind of collaboration you'd feel best about. But try to boost collaboration and choose those projects to work on. And finally, about the collaboration techs of the future in general, these are technologies that reduce friction, align incentives, are available to the masses, and better collaboration allows this positive sum effect, which increases the pie and compounds rewards. Thank you. Oh, that's a long time. Okay, questions online, offline later is also good. Yeah.
Yeah, the next question you can ask is also what are the incentives to cheat? Do you have an example of a use case that something that exists today, of like judge a picture of private computation, and that is done without cryptography because there is no incentive to cheat, but it's still a computation with you just trust the other to do what you ask them privately?
I'm not sure I understand the question. Let me talk a second about this. So in the auction design, you use, so in Aarhus, and I think in subsequent projects, they use truthful auctions, so victory auctions, also known as second price auctions, which are, how's that called? Not honest mechanisms, truthful. So it's called truthful mechanisms. It's mechanisms where you have no incentive to say something that's not true. So you design the game theory, there's a whole field called mechanism design, that one of the many great achievements of this field is that it's economics and computer science, and one of the great achievements is that they designed games, it's about designing the game so that you'll only be incentivized to reveal your true preferences, right? Once you design an auction in a truthful way, you don't have any reason for, people have no reason to cheat. So that's the point of this sugar beet application. They designed the truthful auction and they cleared it using SMPC. And if you think of a future use, so this use. So you'll ask me in a future, in the beautiful future I'm imagining, you'll ask me, how much money do you really need to live? And how sad do you feel today? And how much do you need to eat? I don't know, you'll ask me questions, or you'll try to make me reveal my needs without me being able to lie. And that's why you need the mechanism design in here. You need to design a taxation mechanism that is truthful. And in fact, the best place to look at this is, what's that called? The radical markets. Right? All the radical markets book is basically about that. It's about mechanism design for making truthful. Some of these mechanisms are really truthful. Some of them are only kind of truthful, but the whole point is trying to get people to reveal their preferences. So for a Herberger text, right? That's exactly the point. You make someone really declare how much their property is worth, because if they misdeclared it, they will get screwed. Does that answer the question?
Exactly, okay. Yeah. And so those guys don't need cryptography.
They do, because it's privacy, because I don't want necessarily, in many use cases, I don't want to reveal the value of my house. So when I say to the government, hi, my house for the Herberger needs is worth $1 million, for a private person, it's probably fine, but businesses start having problems with this. And when you get into the tiny details of stuff, you'll need your car and your detailed belongings and so on. There's a lot of privacy violations that will basically make this untenable without conserving people's privacy, and that's where secure multi-party computation comes in, especially here, right? This is a radical market kind of, I should really update this in the spirit of radical markets.
This optimal option, it uses a Judge Judy, right? It's built under the assumption that someone is taking the bids privately and
exactly.
doing the right computation.
Yes.
So you need to replace, after you have the game theory, you still need to replace this.
Exactly. And my guess is that this is why Aarhus was the first place this was deployed, because they have a really good economics and game theory group, as well as a really good cryptography group. And I suspect that that's the magic that happened there. More questions? Okay, so thank you very much. And tell me which applications you're looking to implement. As you can see, I'm missing some. So I'm always looking for new ones, and if you have good ideas, come talk to me. And I think there's lots and lots hiding here. There's one called Ontici. It's about improving financing improving private equity, basically, using zero-knowledge proofs. There's so many stuff to do here. So if you want to talk about this, I think this is one of the most exciting things happening right now in tech, honestly. I mean, I've been waiting for this for many years. So anyway, thank you very much. Talk to me about your startups or friend startups and so on. And